What if I told you that Carl Jung discovered something so psychologically dangerous about empaths that he spent the last decades of his life trying to warn humanity about it? But every time he attempted to publish his findings, he pulled back, terrified of what he might unleash upon the world. There exists a moment in every true empath's journey that Jung called the point of no return, a psychological threshold that, once crossed, transforms the empath from humanity's greatest healers into something he could only describe as the most beautiful monsters the human psyche has ever produced. And if you've been feeling something shifting deep within your empathic nature lately, if you've noticed yourself becoming strangely detached from people suffering, if you've caught yourself experiencing moments of what can only be described as cold satisfaction when manipulative people finally face consequences for their actions, then you may already be approaching this terrifying metamorphosis. Jung's private journals, released only decades after his death, revealed his growing obsession with what he termed empathic inversion, a psychological phenomenon he witnessed in his most profound patients. Individuals who had given so much of themselves to others that something fundamental broke inside them. But instead of shattering completely, they reassembled into something unprecedented. Something that retained all their capacity for deep feeling and emotional connection, but had developed an additional faculty that Jung found both magnificent and deeply disturbing. They had learned to feel what would destroy people just as clearly as they once felt what would heal them. This isn't another story about empaths learning boundaries or practicing self-care or protecting their energy from toxic people. This is about the moment when an empath's psychological structure undergoes such complete reorganization that they emerge as beings capable of psychological precision that borders on the supernatural. They become individuals who can read the deepest vulnerabilities in any person within moments of meeting them, who understand exactly which words would provide comfort or inflict maximum psychological damage, and most terrifyingly of all, who develop an almost artistic appreciation for the choice between these two possibilities. You've probably felt it starting, haven't you? That strange new clarity when people try to manipulate you. That growing ability to see through facades that once confused you. That increasing awareness of exactly which emotional buttons people are trying to push and exactly how pathetic their attempts actually are. That rising sense of your own psychological power and the growing temptation to use it in ways that would have horrified your former self. These aren't signs that you're becoming cold or losing your empathic gifts. These are symptoms of what Jung called the dark flowering, the moment when an empath's shadow integration becomes so complete that they gain access to psychological abilities that most humans never develop and could never handle responsibly. Jung spent years studying individuals who had undergone this transformation, and what he discovered both fascinated and terrified him in ways that shaped the rest of his career. These weren't people who had become evil or lost their moral compass. They were individuals who had developed such sophisticated understanding of human psychology that they could navigate both light and darkness with equal skill, who could heal and destroy with the same precision, who had become psychological artists capable of sculpting human consciousness itself. But here's what made Jung's research so forbidden, so dangerous to publish in his lifetime. These transformed empaths didn't just gain the ability to protect themselves from psychological predators. They gained the ability to hunt them, to identify manipulative individuals before those individuals even recognized their own manipulative tendencies, to sense narcissistic patterns in people who still considered themselves empathic, to detect psychological parasites who were still in the early stages of their predatory development. They became immune to gaslighting not just because they recognized it, but because they understood the psychology behind it so thoroughly that they could reverse engineer it, turn it back on its source, make the gaslighter question their own perception of reality with surgical precision. They developed the ability to make energy vampires feel drained just by being in their presence, to create psychological environments so uncomfortable for toxic individuals that these people would remove themselves without any direct confrontation needed. Most chilling of all, they began to enjoy this power, not in a sadistic way, but with the deep satisfaction that comes from finally being able to defend not just themselves, but other innocent people from psychological predators who had operated with impunity for so long. Jung observed that these individuals retained all their compassion for genuine souls, all their desire to heal authentic pain, all their commitment to protecting the vulnerable. But they had also developed what he could only describe as shadow empathy, the ability to feel exactly what would psychologically demolish someone who threatened the people or principles they cared about, and the emotional detachment necessary to deploy that knowledge without hesitation or remorse. Think about every person who has ever taken advantage of your kindness, every narcissist who has used your empathy as a weapon against you, every manipulator who has made you feel guilty for having needs or boundaries, every energy vampire who has drained you while giving nothing back, every toxic individual who has exploited your willingness to see the good in people, who has used your forgiveness as permission to hurt you again and again. Now imagine possessing such complete understanding of their psychological weaknesses that you could destroy their entire self-image with a single conversation. Imagine being able to see through their masks so clearly that you could expose their true nature to everyone around them without saying a word directly about them. Imagine having the ability to make them so psychologically uncomfortable in your presence that they would avoid you entirely, protecting not just yourself, but everyone else they might target. This is the power that Jung discovered empaths develop when they've been pushed beyond every reasonable limit, when their survival mechanisms finally integrate with their empathic abilities to create something unprecedented in human psychology. But here's where Jung's warning becomes truly terrifying, where his research led him into territory that made him question whether humanity was ready for this knowledge. The transformation doesn't stop at self-defense. It continues evolving until the empath becomes capable of psychological warfare so sophisticated that they can reshape entire social dynamics around them. They learn to identify the psychological weaknesses not just in individuals, but in groups, systems, institutions. They develop the ability to see the shadow aspects of any organization or community and understand exactly how to expose or exploit these vulnerabilities. They become capable of psychological chess playing at levels that can destabilize entire power structures built on the exploitation of empathic individuals. You're probably starting to recognize this development within yourself, aren't you? That growing ability to see the hidden motivations behind people's actions. That increasing clarity about which relationships are genuine and which are parasitic. That rising awareness of how much of your life you've wasted on people who never deserved your energy and how much power you actually possess to change these dynamics. You might have noticed that manipulative people are becoming less effective with you, not because you're blocking their attempts, but because you're starting to understand their strategies so thoroughly that you can predict and counter their moves before they make them. You might have observed that toxic individuals are becoming uncomfortable around you for reasons they can't articulate, sensing something different about your energy that makes their usual tactics feel ineffective and risky. This is what Jung called the dawn of shadow empathy, the moment when an empath's psychological structure reorganizes itself around principles of power and accountability rather than service and sacrifice. The most profound aspect of Jung's research was his discovery that this transformation is irreversible once it begins. There is no going back to the naive empathy that once defined these individuals. They become permanently changed beings who can choose moment by moment whether to heal or destroy based on their assessment of what each person deserves. But they can never again be the unconditional sources of emotional labor they once were. They develop what Jung termed discerning empathy, the ability to feel everything someone else is experiencing while simultaneously evaluating whether that person merits compassion or consequences based on their intentions and actions toward innocent people. They become empaths with judgment, empaths with standards, empaths with the power to enforce their boundaries in ways that reshape reality around them. But here's what made this knowledge so forbidden that Jung hesitated to publish it during his lifetime. These transformed empaths don't just become immune to psychological manipulation. They become the most effective psychological manipulators who have ever existed, capable of influencing human behavior in ways that make traditional manipulation look primitive and crude. The difference is that their manipulation serves authentic values rather than selfish ones. They use their psychological power to protect innocence, promote genuine growth, and eliminate threats to emotional and spiritual well-being. They become psychological guardians who can create safe spaces for authentic souls while simultaneously making life unbearable for predatory individuals. Jung worried about what would happen when empaths stopped being willing to absorb collective darkness and started reflecting it back to its sources with interest. When they stopped being victims and became agents of psychological justice that no existing authority structure could control or contain. He feared that transformed empaths might become too powerful, too autonomous, too capable of seeing through the illusions and lies that keep dysfunctional social systems operating. He worried that they might use their shadow empathy to reshape human consciousness itself, to make psychological predation impossible by creating environments where manipulative behavior backfires so consistently that people stop attempting it. But what Jung also discovered, what gave him hope even as it deepened his concerns about the implications of this transformation, was that empaths who successfully navigate shadow integration don't lose their fundamental commitment to love, truth, and authentic human connection. They simply gain the power to protect these values in ways that make conventional authority structures unnecessary. They become living embodiments of justice backed by psychological power that can reshape social reality through their understanding of human consciousness and their willingness to use that understanding to eliminate threats to what they value most. As you feel this transformation beginning within yourself, as you sense your psychological structure reorganizing around new principles of power and discernment, as you notice your growing ability to see through facades and manipulations that once confused you, remember that you're not becoming evil or losing your soul or descending into the darkness that once hurt you. You're becoming complete. You're not losing your empathy or your capacity for healing. You're gaining the wisdom to direct these gifts toward those who deserve them, while developing the power to protect yourself and others from those who would exploit empathic nature. The world desperately needs empaths who can navigate both dimensions of human experience, who can heal authentic pain while neutralizing psychological predators, who can see both the potential for good and evil in every person and respond appropriately to what they discover. Jung's final warning was also his greatest hope, that empaths who undergo this transformation would use their shadow empathy responsibly, that they would become guardians of human consciousness rather than its conquerors, that they would use their integrated darkness to protect light rather than extinguish it. The choice of how to wield this unprecedented psychological power remains entirely yours. But choose carefully, because once you cross this threshold of shadow integration, once you become an empath who can feel what destroys people as clearly as what heals them, there is no returning to the innocent empathy that once defined you. You will become something that Jung could only glimpse in his most profound research into human potential. Something that represents either the next stage of human evolution or the emergence of a new kind of consciousness that transcends traditional categories of healer and destroyer, light and shadow, victim and predator. The terrifying moment when an empath goes dark isn't a fall from grace. It's an ascension to a level of psychological integration that allows them to become guardians of authenticity in a world that desperately needs protection from its own shadow elements. The question isn't whether this transformation will happen if you're a true empath who has been pushed beyond your limits. The question is what you'll choose to do with the shadow empathy that emerges when your light and darkness finally become one unified force of conscious awareness. Jung's forbidden warning echoes through time with both terror and hope. The world is about to discover what empaths become when they stop absorbing darkness and start wielding it as a tool for protecting everything they hold sacred. Are you ready to discover who you really are when you're no longer afraid of your own psychological power? When you finally understand that your empathy was never meant to be a weakness for others to exploit, but a strength sophisticated enough to encompass both creation and destruction in service of authentic love? In the comments below, I want to know, have you experienced moments where you felt this shadow empathy emerging, where you've suddenly understood exactly what would psychologically affect someone who's been manipulating you, and found yourself both disturbed and empowered by that knowledge? Share your story, because understanding this transformation is how we learn to navigate it responsibly.